Hi everybody, I want to talk about the astrological moon and the natal moon in astrology. So let's get into it. We all know that there is this force of natural embodiment in everyone's life, and it can be described by the astrological moon. I want to discuss reading the moon in astrology in all of her mystery and glory. The symbology of the moon offers us a deeper understanding of ourselves, both as beings rooted on this planet and that unique aspect of soul that we all carry throughout our lives on it. So, the moon is the closest body to Earth, and this space between the moon and Earth is known as the sublunar realm. It's home to nature, comprising of the four elements and all of the cycles of life. It governs all living biological beings and processes on the planet as they attune to certain rhythms and conditions. It's well known that the moon exerts influence on planet Earth, particularly stabilizing the planet's tilt. So, without the holding of the moon, the Earth's tilt would change so drastically that we would have completely different weather patterns, and animals dependent on the moon for their natural rhythms could even die. The awareness of lunar timing, how the movement of the moon is connected to natural cycles, particularly women's menstrual cycles, have not only fascinated for thousands of years, but was used to guide people. Those cycles in particular, women's menstrual cycles were counted, and with that, one of the first calendars were created. So the moon was synonymous with timing, utilized mainly for farming and hunting. Also with a close relationship to the water element through the pulling of the ocean tides is one of the attachments you see to planet Earth. Before long, the moon was seen to be tied not only to cycles of time, but to biology, cycles of cell growth and death, and used in particularly tracking different disease states and the culmination of them. Also, through medical astrology, the moon is tied a lot to functions of various glands and, of course, fluids. Cornell's Encyclopedia of Medical Astrology is a really good source for the lunar significations and which ones you could have in your own chart. There's really countless observations of the moon's connections to the animation of life and biology. So, when we think about the symbolism, we think what allows us to be living and alive here on planet Earth. So, the first thing is our physical body, and the moon rules over the physical body being a biological system. To be living, to be dying, to be part of that cycle of life where we are born and we inevitably all die. Hormones and all of these mystical forms of communication and connection within the body that keep us ticking, cycles of conception, rhythms of sleep, they're all symbolized by the moon. The physical body is our root to the living matrix, our root in the living matrix. So your natal moon tells a story of the astrological moon, the moment you were born, and it speaks to this particular root system that you have, much like the roots of a tree. You are rooted, and from this root, you receive the nutrients that you need to survive. And by tapping into this root, we can see our deeper essence, how we are nurtured, how we nurture others, how we accommodate to this really complicated world as very complicated, complex beings. Human beings have been living in accordance with the natural rhythms and patterns of nature for thousands of years, and it was intentionally done for survival. To observe your surroundings, and through that observation and through that interconnection, adapt and evolve. So this brings us to the next symbol of the astrological moon, an allowance of living aside from the physical body. It is the environment we have found our earliest survival dependent on. And you can call this childhood, where you had a caretaker, as we were all once dependent on the care of another to survive. And there's a sequence in every symbol of the astrological moon, and it's to experience, absorb, and express. So, what we experienced with this caretaker and the environment of childhood that we had, we then absorb and adapt and express. So absorption becomes our beliefs, our attitudes, and the values as we adapt, and our emotional responses. We then express through our habits and compulsions and defenses throughout life. So if I realize caretaker responds to my needs more when I do this, I must do this for my best chance of survival. That is my natal moon. Survival comes to mean different things given people's different environments, and that can certainly be explored by tracing the astrological moon story. But you can see it's much deeper than just mom. But mom is definitely part of the symbolism. Mom is biology. We can learn here that through the impulses and behaviors that we have had, we can also have an effect on nature around us. And this is instilled into the unconscious. So the astrological moon symbolizes our reactions, the conditioned responses in which we react to something, like the currents of life. It is an attunement from previous experience, whether that be early life, if one considers past lives, or even the lived experiences of our ancestors. Ancestors because, again, biology. Here is a route to past conditioning for survival, and it comprises of this memory. Our deepest memory is needing to survive, and the past becomes our instincts, and our instincts become our unconscious. So the moon has this inherent sense of security and survival to it. Out of the 4 elements, physical safety is given to the earth element, and emotional safety is given to the water element. Each quality of the astrological moon is connected to these yin elements, earth and water. Earth contains water, it holds space and acts as a container for it. And the moon is exalted or raised in its power when it's in the zodiac sign Taurus, which is the fixed earth sign. This mode of feeling safe helps us feel rooted in ourselves, and planetary aspects with the moon, with the natal moon, particularly the most recent separation and the next aspect that the moon was applying to, can show how easily or difficult it is for that individual to attain that feeling of safety. The moon is at home in cardinal water, the zodiac sign of Cancer, and we can learn so much from the qualities of water to understand that mystery of lunacy that we have, starting with the womb and how we are surrounded in fluid. So initially it's mostly water, and then increasingly other organic compounds and nutrients from mom. We are nourished into physical form, and our earthly body is developed. Here, like the properties of water, we lack boundaries. Same goes for our cosmic mother as our biological mother. There's this boundless media of water from which all life is formed, right? And when we come out into this world, we often come out screaming. It's the ability to emote that gives a depth to this dimension of life, but also declares our presence in it, our physical presence in it. So if we think back to the childhood symbolism, here we also lacked form. This is how we absorb and unconsciously interact with the emotional beings that we develop around, and how some patterns and how we emote and experience emotional experiences could have to do with that temporary boundless space before we've created an individual sense of self. And here we see a lot with the moon, the sun proves to be this gift to the moon, much like how consciousness can save us from conditioning. And together they work throughout our lives. So the astrological moon really gets into the unconscious, that whole emotion meets spirit meets body sphere of life. That relationship between the sun, moon, and earth. And it is in this relationship and in this space that assists the growth of the soul. When emotion and body combine, there are these beings of love, and these beings that are capable of loving and being loved, feeling. The moon represents the heart's connection, not in the sense of the organ, the heart, but the principle of connection, the sense of unity, the feeling of inner peace, which is also happens to give stability to the personality. And why it is also important, the truth being that when we disconnect from this nature, we pay a price, as it's innate to who we are. We are disconnecting from ourselves when we disconnect from that heart space. So going back to the moon being exalted in Taurus, the home sign of Venus, we can see that the moon works as this portal to the heart. And in this world of feeling, we're one with all of life. When we're emotionally connected or fulfilled, we feel connected to everything. And that is the goal here, to lean into the emotional body without fearing its power. And this is done through emotional intelligence, knowing of the emotional body and the emotional selves, and also those of others. Water has this quality of reflection. It reflects things as they are. And like water, our emotions reflect a deeper nature. I'm sure you've heard that emotions are messages. So the natal moon has messages, and aspects with the natal moon will show different things. What is the nature of how emotions live through us? How is it that we respond to them? Where do we feel them? How do we feel them? What do we do with them? And like water, emotions are meant to flow. The lunar quality is changeable, temporary, shape-shifting. We learn by learning that allowance of emotions and having them wax and wane out of view to reveal their truths towards a greater understanding, but also allowing them to slip into darkness from which they came in due time. So emotions are meant to be honored, because without the ability to emote, which is movement, we are dead. And the astrological moon really speaks to life. It reflects how one feels about themselves. Not who they are as themselves, but how do they feel about themselves. It can reflect the way in which we see ourselves, how we feel about how we put ourselves out there and express ourselves. It's that aspect of how do I really feel about this, and what am I grappling with within myself. And also how our intuitive nature is matching up with our environment. Do we feel well received? If you want to be received better, look at the natal moon. If you want to know how you are being received by others, look at the natal moon. A person's innate timing is also written in there. An Aries moon is going to move differently than a Taurus moon, neither being wrong, but living in accordance to their nature. So there's also this aspect of acceptance and being open to seeing how you naturally operate. So in this way, the moon is key in self-regulation, because we have the sun, our source of vitality, spirit, and it's being distributed through the moon. And when we understand this lunar nature, we can express our true selves and fulfill our emotional desires, which are both crucial to quality of life. We know by now that the physical body and emotional body are connected, like the earth and the moon. Our thoughts and emotions create an atmosphere in which impacts our physical form. Clenching your jaw, holding on to anger, tension, contracting your pelvis, these things eventually manifest into physical issues. And it's no mystery. So if the moon is ruling over this unconscious terrain, with that information, we can bring consciousness to a negatively affected area and provide care. The moon is no stranger to care, change, and flow. It is a symbol for evolution. With anchorage to the past and constant progression towards the new, water shapes over time, and emotional changes bring new waves of consciousness. And that's why it's so important that we feel and experience our emotions, because it is the only way we are able to grow and change. The most enchanting part of the moon, however, is how it comes to light the dark. So it allows us to see in the dark. And there are times in life when we are in the dark, and the only way we are able to move around is if we use our moon, use the natal moon to see. And this is our intuition. Sacred remembrance that we are connected to something greater that can assist us in times of unknowing. So even though the moon is absolutely shrouded with mystery, it reveals what is hidden beneath, and that we begin to reveal when we trust. A strong moon in a person is seen in mystics and seers and people that don't fear the mystery but find some kind of comfort in it. That there's this remembrance that there is more than being right and what we can see or what we know right at the moment. And actually, before the discovery of outer planets in astrology, the moon held these significations, like mysticism and dreams that are attributed to Neptune were of the moon. Innovation, sudden events, and breakthroughs out of nowhere that we now attribute to Uranus was the moon. And depth psychology and death and rebirth cycles that we see with Pluto were also the moon. The moon has this shape-shifting ability that just struck the ancients as something powerful and undoubtedly connected to life on Earth. So where does this show up personally and individually? The astrological moon shows up in personal, emotional development and domestic aspects of life. We readjust to life in our homes. We welcome others to our humble abodes and have this private place or sanctuary. But we realize too that home is also a feeling. So the moon is going to show you where home is, and even a sense of longing for home. When a person was born, the moon was passing through one of the 12 zodiac signs, imprinting a specific elemental and modal time on that person. And patterns of energy based on the element, fire, water, air, and earth, and the modality, cardinal, fixed, or mutable, will be seen by the natural rhythms that they operate by. The astrological house where the moon is located will represent the area of life that is primarily anchored to that lunar frequency. The heart lives there, and also the house ruled by Cancer is going to be important to bringing this essence into this dimensional reality and just day-to-day life. Also, the moon was in a certain lunar phase, and that is reflecting a very specific relationship between the sun, moon, and the vantage point of Earth. And that natal lunar phase is very useful in itself, but it's particularly revealing as a timing technique. Lunar phases are not fixed, they progress through life. And through the ongoing phases, you can see these different metaphysical conceptions, births, and renewals that someone goes through. And it's these cycles of creation connected to the progressed phases of the moon that make our lives so evolutionary. And through the progressed lunar signs, we allow, through our emotional body, engagement and gentle surrender with life. Outside of the natal chart and synastry, other people can play active roles with the native's private life and their private emotional life. It's always cool to see somebody who activates another person's moon, and the person just feels so comforted and just of kin with this person. And since the moon symbolism is so involved with being connected to something else, I see it as this lunar aspect where we receive from something greater. We receive, from a power source, the sun. And the moon quite literally is reflecting the sun's light, and that we can see. But it is also reflecting everything out in the cosmos, and there lie her mystery. The moon is a transmitter to Earth of all that lay beyond it, enforcing this emotional, energetic, living impulse. And from all of this receptivity, together we grow something beautiful. And I think that's the coolest part of the moon symbolism. So I hope this video got you thinking a bit about the power of the astrological moon and what it reflects in your own life. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and I will be back soon with another video.